Channels, networks, forms and dimensions of communication. Communication can be classified or categorized on the following basis. So, it could be organization structure, formal or informal, dimension, direction of communication based on the direction, upward, downward, lateral, diagonal, inward, outward, expression, written, oral, non-verbal, and various formation of networks that happens during communication: wheel network, Y network, chain network, all channel, kite and slash. Now, let us look at the various channels. There are two distinct channels identified. One is the formal channel and the other one is the informal channel. Formal channel, as the name specifies, follows a particular direction, normally from top to bottom. A classic example would be board of directors communicates something and it passed on to the managing director. From there it comes down to the top level management, then to the middle level management, senior supervisors, first line supervisors and then employees or the shop floor employees. So, it is communication being done through a proper channel. That is formal communication. Advantages: the flow is correct, the message reaches perfectly in the way it should, and everybody gets the message clearly, while the process is slow and the feedback process is equally slow. So, that is the small disadvantage that you have through formal communication. Informal channel of communication. Every company has an informal channel, very commonly called the grapevine. Are grapevines good or bad? I would say the grapevine, if it has a certain degree of control and is well managed, it is always good for an organization, because in an informal way a company can communicate some of its difficult policies and decisions and get a quick feedback from the employees whether they are going in the right direction or not. Grapevines, as we know, travels through the hallways, the lunch rooms, the gatherings, and that is how it finds its way to the employees. And if well channeled, it certainly can give very good feedback to the management, based on which they can take their next step, where the formal communication can then happen and it will be well received. Communication on the basis of direction are downward, upward, horizontal, diagonal, inward, outward. Now, let us see each one of them. Downward communication could be written, could be oral, and underwritten it could be in the form of instructions, in the form of a memoranda, letters, handbooks. When we join, we are given handbook that tells us about the company. Policy statements. In a company, policies are made so that all of us have a proper understanding and we follow the same methods and procedures for various things. Procedures, electronic news. Whenever there is a news of either an order being received or a new customer being added, it could be in the form of a procedure electronic news displays. Others. Oral instructions, which possibly the manager will give to his employees. Take a typical production setup, what they need to do. Speeches, a motivational speech or a speech from a head to his subordinates. Meetings, very often to decide how one should crack a problem, how one should go about as far as a particular process is concerned. Telephones, loudspeaker to make certain announcements, and others. Upward communication. Communication most often happens downwards. When upward communication needs to happen, it does happen in organizations which promote that and favor such things, but very often employees are scared to give feedback, and hence the upward channel normally is very clogged, and the right message does not reach the top management. In some cases top management don't want to hear, and in some cases top management want to, And those cases where top management want to get the feedback and want an upward communication channel, they do hire, an ombudsperson who acts as a liaison officer between the employees and the top management. Because when this channel becomes clear, the company can function well, so that there is a clear understanding between the lower levels and the higher levels. Lateral or horizontal communication. This is a must when we have different departments working in a company and they need to work together. And a very typical example that one can share is between the marketing and the production, where the marketing department wants certain numbers of the product and the production department needs to produce those numbers in order to achieve the targets that they've set for themselves. Diagonal or crosswise communication, where the human resource department or the training department that needs to communicate with one and all, it communicates with the top and to the lowermost in order to convey or in order to get information so that it can do the training well, and the training needs to be effective. So information gathering can happen from various levels. This could be a typical example of a diagonal crosswise communication, and it happens through oral and written. Informal meetings, a training officer could go and sit with the production manager to see what are the issues which he is facing so that it can be addressed through trainings. Lunch hour meetings, formal conferences, project organization meetings. They sit through these meetings to see which are the areas where certain levels of training is required. Advisory authority interactions with line managers of different departments. Written, company news / paper / magazine, because that travels to all. Bulletin boards, which conveys message again to all. In-house journal or other forms of communication. What's inward communication? Inward communication includes all the information that flows into the organization from the various external entities. They are other organizations. It could be a chain of organizations where the parent organization may want to convey something to the child organization. Government, which comes up with new rules and regulations and may want to convey those to the business. Suppliers, they may want to send their purchase or rather sales deed and so on. Customers, competitors, shareholders, and media. What are the various forms in which inward communication happens? Through letters, emails, offers, orders, requests, suggestions, complaints, notices, and so on. What then is outward communication? Very clear. What goes out of the business to the various entities involved. Advertisements, which is done through the media so that people know about the business and its products. Media interaction, it could be an interview or it could be a panel asking questions. Public relations, where we have fair or we could participate in certain events. Negotiations, salesmen keep doing that with customers. Mails, telegrams, letters, tenders, notices, telephonic conversation, and so on. What are the various forms of communication? We have the verbal, which is oral and written, and the non-verbal. Oral, anything which is done using the mouth is oral communication. And when do we do that? When we are training, when we give speeches, when we are having discussions, meetings, oral communication is very active. Written, when we want to send memos, we want to write policies, written communication is very effective. The non-verbal, when we use sign, when we use gestures, and normally non-verbal complements the verbal communication. Factors influencing organization communication. What are they? Formal channels of communication, authority structure, job specialization and information ownership. A formal channel of communication normally follows a downward flow, as we've already seen, and mostly written so that the proper message is conveyed. Authority structure, where a person, okay, has the authority only to communicate, and he is the person who will communicate one and all. Job specialization ownership, where a classic example could be of a surgeon, a plastic surgeon who is an authority in the subject, and he is the only one who conveys and not anybody else. Information ownership, the finance team, which has all the information as far as finance data is concerned. They are the people normally authorized to communicate finance data to people outside the business.